All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. If you would like to ask a question during the conference, please press star then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. To withdraw your question, press the pound key. I will now turn the call over to Mike Kern. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and let's go ahead and get started. We do have our first coach on the call. It's Greg Lansing of Indiana State. The Sycamores playing at Missouri State on the 18th, and then close out the week with a home game against Southern Illinois this weekend. Morning, Greg.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. Let's talk about the Bears. We're getting a little healthier, but talk about your game against Missouri State, and then we'll open it up for some questions.
Yeah, they finally got a couple guys back that have been out, and I really feel for Paul. You know, that's a tough thing to have happen. What they did, kids these days, you don't know what the heck's going on in their heads sometime. But then to follow that with some injuries to key guys, it's been tough, and he's doing all he can with mixing and matching lineups in between. And watched that yesterday where they did get a couple of those guys back, so they'll be getting better and have their depth, some little more of the depth. But UNI does that to about everybody they played. So, I throw that one out a little bit. And I really liked how Paul's guys responded at the end and just kept competing and fighting. And we know we're going to get their best shot this weekend. It's a huge game for us. So we're anxious for the next couple of days of practice to get ready for them.
Thank you, Greg. Let's get now to the questions for Coach Greg Lansing. Questions from the media. Hello?
Hello?
I can hear you, Greg. I know we've got some questions in the queue for you. I'm just waiting for them to dial up here.
Okay.
Your first question comes from the line of Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
Hey, good morning, Greg. I was wondering if you had thoughts about, do you believe Wichita and Northern are both in the NCAA tournament no matter what?
Yeah. Harry, there's no question. I think they're high seeds, and I know they got to play each other, and we got to play Wichita, and they both have some tough games with people gunning for them. But I was in the Big Ten for 7 years. Those two teams would be just fine in the Big Ten. I mean, they are really good and deep and very, very well coached and have some veterans that they're on a mission. Those two teams have been on a mission. We knew that coming into the year, but there's no question those teams are high seed in the tournament in my book.
And then if I could follow up, Greg, just about other teams making it maybe into some of the other tournaments. You guys, maybe, I don't know, Evansville, maybe Illinois State. Do you have thoughts about how many other teams could play in postseason?
Well, Illinois State's awfully talented, and they're gonna be right. They could win out. They could be right in the hunt here for this thing. They could be rolling coming into St. Louis. I know Dan likes his team, and I think they're really, really good. Think very highly of Evansville's team, and they've had to deal with some injuries and guys missing, so they'll be finishing strong, I'm sure. So, we shot ourselves in the foot with our conference, dealing with 7 new guys and a pretty difficult schedule, but guys have responded fairly well since, and I feel about it the same way I usually do. Teams in our league are very well coached. They get into the postseason, they are going to be ready to go, and they're going to be winning games.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Paul Solenchop with the Wichita Eagles.
Yeah, I was going to do a story about how college basketball uses different balls. The home team gets to choose the brand. How big a deal is that? Does that have much of an effect on anything?
It's funny to say that. I mean, I know when I was with Alford at Iowa, that was a huge deal to him. As a shooter, he wanted to practice with the ball, so we had whatever somebody else would use. We always had those kind of balls, and we've done it here. And I can think of my point guard for the last 4 years. He was huge on that, and he used to hate going to having to use those brand new Rawlings, or what were the Rawlings or Wilsons, the ones we had to use to formulate the tournament before they went to Nike. I'd always mess Jake up. So to me, it does not matter. But if it matters to any of the players, then you have to be ready with some balls to work on and practice with.
Let me make sure I understand that right. So you've actually have other basketballs, other brands that you can use when you're on the road? We do that. If they're like Southern does the Under Armour balls, we always have at least two of. We always check on what balls they use, and we always have a couple that we use in practice that week. What are the differences? What do the players talk about the difference?
Oh, let me think. Whether the synthetics, how the feel is, how slick it is, if you can get a good grip on it. Obviously, most guys don't like those brand new type balls, but there's different guys complain about different things. I just remember that Odom hated those brand new ones we used to have to use going into the tournament.
You're talking about the Valley tournament.
Pardon?
Talking about the Valley tournament. Brand new ball.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
You bet. Thanks, Paul.
Your next question comes from the line of, I'm sorry, he has withdrawn his question.
Greg, that was your final question. Thank you for your time this morning. Good luck this week.
That's fine. We'll see you.
All right, we'll see you. You have Coach Ben Jacobson of Northern Iowa. The Panthers opening up their week against Loyola on the road and then back at home against Bradley this weekend. Morning, Jake.
Hey, good morning, Mike.
So you still in Springfield?
Yeah, we are. We fly out of here about 1:30, so we should be back. We should be back home by 3:00.
Good. Well, let's get right to the questions for you. Questions for Coach Ben Jacobson of Northern Iowa.
Please press star and the number 1. Your first question comes from Andrew Lowe with the Des Moines Register.
Coach, wanted to ask you, you've talked before about how Seth's kind of almost like a basketball junkie. He comes in every morning, he's talking about whatever game may have been happening around the nation that day. Is that true? Or talk about kind of Seth, maybe just even away from the court, he's kind of devoted or a follower of the game.
Yeah, he is, and I guess I wouldn't say it's every morning, Andrew. It's a morning or two a week that he'll pop in, but even before practice, I'll make sure that I throw something at him, and after practice, or I hear him talking with the other guys. He watches games. Other teams play at night. He follows teams very closely. He's a basketball guy.
And then for you, how did you approach him this season? As far as I don't know, stepping up his game or the role that he could play this season, and what kind of expectations did the two of you talk about going into this season?
It was far less to do with him, stepping up his play or taking on more from a scoring or rebounding standpoint. It really was on a different track than that. It was much more about putting in the kind of time outside of practice, in the weight room, individual workouts, having a great routine during the day. So it isn't something you just, do and then maybe you miss 2 days, you come back and do it. Something to get done every single day. And that was the focus of what we felt like was going to be most important for Seth, and then help, in turn help our team the most. And he's followed through big time on that.
Okay. Thanks, Coach.
Yep. Thanks.
Your next question comes from Jeremiah Davis with the Cedar Rapids Gazette.
Morning, Coach. How you doing?
Yeah. Good morning.
Wanted to ask you, you've gotten some experience now playing with big leagues. Have you seen what you wanted to see out of the guys when you're up 15 to 20 points? And if not, what would you like to see different?
Yeah, we've at times, Jeremiah, we've handled that well, and at times we haven't. And I think part of it is, we're playing against good teams and we play in a good league, and when we've been fortunate enough to play well and get out to a double-digit lead, there's certainly some things that that we can do better from an execution standpoint on offense. And in saying that, I do think that can be a tricky part of the game between the 5 and 8 minute mark when, if you do happen to have a 15 or 16 point lead, just exactly how you attack that offensively. And, in some games we've continued to attack in transition, and that's been good for us. In some games we've continued to attack in transition, and all of a sudden the other team has a quick 3 or 4 possessions that help them. And in other games, we've taken our time, and that's been good for us. And some others, Jeremiah, we've taken our time, and it hasn't been great for us. So I just think that part of the game can be a little bit tricky. And I would tell you, the experiences we've had this year, and what I'm coming away with is the most important thing for our team is to continue to be aggressive. I think that's when we've had our most success in keeping the lead.
I've noticed too that you like to keep your main guys, especially Seth, in the game a lot later than, quote unquote conventional wisdom might be. And you mentioned that a little bit after your last home game. Do you like to keep the guys in as long as possible, or at least your main rotation guys?
Yeah, the guys that have played well in that particular game, and as we found out, Seth's going to be in the game. Outside of Seth, it's been different guys, and the group of guys that have played well or maybe been in that rotation a little bit more on that night, they're going to stay in for a long time. That's the way that we've played it.
And my last question for you: how does this extra day in Springfield kind of adjust your preparation for Wednesday?
Yeah, we should be back in town, by 3:00 or a little after, in time to get over to the gym and do a little bit. Guys did some workout stuff this morning, so it shouldn't have any impact on what we're doing for Wednesday.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep, thanks.
Your next question comes from Paul Sullentrop with the Wichita Eagle.
Then when things are going as well as they are for you, what kind of things do you do to not stagnate, to keep improving in practices, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we're trying to, we'll still do a lot of our breakdown defensive drills, Paul, our 3-on-3 shell type stuff, and I'll just try to make sure that we don't do the exact same drills within our 3-on-3, day after day after day, and then try to throw in a different 4-on-4 defensive drill or a different rebounding drill. We're trying to hit on the same things, the fundamentals of our defense, our blockouts. But I got to make sure I don't do the exact same drills every day. I think that's an important part of it for me, and keeping it just fresh enough for the guys. And then offensively, adding 1 or 2 things, every day or every couple of days, or maybe just in between games, to give the guys a little something to think about, a little wrinkle here and there, and try and maybe to involve a different guy, find something that can get maybe Jeremy Morgan involved just a little bit. Then a week later, maybe a different guy, just get him a play that maybe works for him. So just trying to find a couple of little ways to accomplish what you asked, while at the same time, 95% of what we're doing, Paul, is all the same stuff. So, just trying to find a little different way to accomplish the same thing in between games.
If you're adding things, you've got such an experienced team. Can you do more of that at this point in the year, because you do have so many, long-timers?
Yeah, no question that helps. I remember last year and the year before, last year we just had 2 seniors, and it was harder, no doubt. So having the 5 seniors, getting this late into the year, even some of the younger guys like Wyatt Lowhouse, a good guy like Jesperson, they've become accustomed now to us adding a couple things in between games, and so the experience and being late in the year, I think, helps with that.
It looks like Jesperson is playing some more minutes here over the last 10 days or 2 weeks. How's that progressing?
Yeah, playing great. I think yesterday maybe was 6 games now where he's really helped us. And right before that, Paul, he had gotten sick, and it was 7 to 10 days. It was almost, I think it was 3 games where he didn't hardly practice for that 7 to 10 days. He didn't hardly play in those games. It really took a lot out of him, and didn't get talked about much. I didn't realize until after we got through it, Paul, that it had taken that much out of him. And he's all the way back now. And the game at Southern Illinois was the one that started the run that he's on, and he's playing great right now.
Anything in particular that he's doing?
I think being back in the rotation and having he had a good outing at Southern Illinois where I played him the last 15 minutes of the game, and he was really effective. Had some opportunities and knocked in some shots, and so his confidence and because of that, I think he's shooting the basketball really well. I think he's shooting above 50% from three in his last 6 games. But he's defending, as good as he has all year. Again, mainly I think, Paul, just his confidence is way up.
You coming from a place that plays such great defense, did that make his adjustment easier?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. That helped. We're doing a lot of the same drills, at least what Paul tells me that he was doing at Virginia. And there's a couple things that are a little bit different, but the majority of it is very, very similar, and that helped him.
Thank you.
Yep.
Your next question comes from Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
Hey, Ben, we've had a bad history sometimes in the league when really good teams had good RPIs but still didn't make the tournament. Do you have any worries about you guys and the Shockers being selected if neither of you happen to win the tournament? And then beyond that, other teams in the league you think deserve to play in postseason if it's not the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I would say, to answer the second part, maybe first here, Harry, Indiana State is playing really well right now, and if they can continue to do that and finish strong, I think they're in position to get some postseason stuff. Illinois State and Evansville have had very good years, and I think would be in line for some postseason stuff. And to your first question, Harry, I guess right now. We've really, and it's the coach speak, but boy, our guys have done such a good job of just taking things in stride and getting ready for our next game that I haven't really even thought about that. And I look at all the stuff. I look at excuse me, each day I take a look at things on whichever site. So I look at it and I check it out. But I haven't given it much thought. We've both had great years, and I think if that continues here the next 2 weeks, Harry, I don't think there's any question that we'll both be in the NCAA tournament.
Thanks a lot. Have a great week.
Yep, thanks.
Jake, that was your final question. Thanks for your time. Good luck getting back home, and good luck this week.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks. We'll hold for just a moment. Coach Ray Giacoletti is next on our list. I know they're writing film session. Tyler Cadden's going to pull them out, and we'll have Coach Giacoletti on in just a second.
I'm ready to go.
Oh, hey, Ray, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Well, let's talk about your game tomorrow night. Evansville is first in your games this week. Missouri State later in the week at home. Let's talk about the Purple Aces.
Yeah, we're in Evansville now and got hit with a bunch of snow. So thank God we came right from Indiana State to here. Probably would have had a little bit of difficulty getting down here. But, Evansville's playing really well. They're back to full strength. We had some success defensively against them in Des Moines on some things that we tried to do with Valentine. And we'll try to do the same thing again here on Tuesday night and see if we can slow him down a little bit. And, then you got to be able to go try to limit them to one shot and being done because they've done a good job rebounding the basketball, and both the big kids have rebounded well here as of late also.
Thank you, Ray. Let's get down to the questions for you. Questions from the media for Coach Giacoletti.
Your first question comes from Andrew Lowe with the Des Moines Register.
Hi, Coach.
Hey, Andrew. How you doing?
All right. I wanted to ask you, as you kind of get in here now, you've got a couple weeks left in the regular season, and every team kind of readjusts goals. You guys have got a shot to kind of avoid that play-in game at the conference tournament, and that's something actually that Drake has, been kind of assigned to in recent years. Is that something you guys talk about? And hey, let's get ourselves so that we're in the main draw, or do you use that as a goal at any time?
We have not talked about it until after getting beat at Indiana State the other night, and I thought it was probably time to talk about it. So we just brought it up yesterday, as a matter of fact. Like I said, we went right from Indiana State the next day, then to bus to Evansville, and so we had a chance yesterday to to talk about some things, where we're at, where we stand with 4 games left to play, regular season games, and that was one of the things we brought up. And so, I just, with a lot of teams, you just try to stay focused for the next game at hand, and as long as you take care of yourself with that, good things happen. But we slipped a little bit. We at Indiana State, and again, not to take nothing away from the Sycamores, but we have put together some pretty good basketball for a stretch of time here, and we just, I don't know, you got to be able to go on the road and do some of those same things, and we were not able to. And so, like I said yesterday, I thought it was a good time to kind of bring that up, what we're playing for down the stretch, and trying to get out of that Thursday game.
Okay, and also you've obviously seen Wichita and Northern Iowa. We've wrapped up with them, and I think preseason a lot of people thought Van Vliet and were kind of the front runners for Player of the Year, but Seth Tuttle and the role he is on has kind of obviously put himself in that conversation. In your mind, has Seth done the sort of things to validate him as a Player of the Year candidate?
Oh, I think without a doubt. I wouldn't say he's the guy, but I mean, Baker, Van Vliet, and Tuttle all need to be in consideration. And, I think each individual coach or media person, would probably have just like opinions on each one of those guys. But from just watching Seth from last year to this year, I think he's made great strides, and he plays so calm and under control, and he plays slow offensively. He's really fun to watch, and it's almost like a teaching video for a post player watching him either seal or just pass out of the post. He really understands angles. So yeah, I would say without a doubt he's a candidate, and should be one of the 3 guys everybody's talking about.
Well, thank you, Coach.
Yep, thanks, Andrew.
Your next question comes from Daniel Alar with the Evansville Courier and Press.
Hi, Coach. How would you describe Reed Timmer's development this season and what he can contribute for you guys?
Well, I think he's, anytime you start a freshman from day one, especially at the point guard spot, you got to put him in some good situations and tough situations. And I think Reed has really gotten better as we moved along. I think all freshmen kind of hit a wall at some point. I think by moving him off the ball the last 4 or 5 games to where we're playing 2 point guards on the floor helped him scoring-wise. But I think he's had a pretty darn good year. Like I said, we put him in some tough situations, and he's persevered and always been able to bounce back. There's obviously some things that, we would like to have him get better, as with everybody here in the off season. But overall, what he's been asked to do, not only trying to make others better, but have to score the ball himself, I think he's had a heck of a freshman season.
You mentioned how you thought you did a good job on Valentine the first time around. Obviously, without giving away too much of your plan, can you just elaborate a bit on what is important while defending him?
Well, I don't think you stop him. I think you just try to put him in, percentages where he's having to shoot over a contested hand. And, I think we did a really good job without bailing him out with a foul. They do such a good job. If your bigs help up at all, and they find those guys. And so, I mean, it's almost the opposite what you tell your bigs with playing other, teams that curl or flare things off screens, because you always want your bigs helping. Here, I mean, you cannot help up the floor at all. You need to keep a hand on the hip. But I just thought we did a good job always, making him shoot contested jump shots. I think we can get some help from the passer jumping to the ball. But just
don't want to bail him out, send him to the free throw line, and he's going to hit tough shots, and you just got to kind of live with those. But Carl Madison, for the most part, had the assignment in Des Moines and did a pretty darn good job just staying disciplined with him.
Great. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Paul Sullentrop with the Wichita Eagles.
Hello, Ray. I'm doing a story about how the home teams choose the brand of basketballs. How big a deal is that? Is it something that you prepare for?
You broke up there for a second on me. I couldn't hear the first part of your question.
So I'm doing a story about how the home team, chooses the brand of basketball. So when you go on the road, you're shooting with different kinds of basketballs.
Yep.
How big a deal is that?
We never talk about it. We order, just like I'm sure everybody else does, all the different balls that our people within the conference are going to use, Nike balls, Adidas balls, whatever it is. And so we practice with that ball 2 or 3 days leading into that game. But we don't really, we don't bring it up. We don't talk about it. I think it's one of those things that it's kind of way it is. That's what ball each team uses, and I think if you can get there, especially with shoot around that day, and try to get there an hour before the game and get some shots up, I think it probably it feels pretty comfortable, like the ball that you normally use. So I don't know. It's a great question. I mean, good shooters can shoot it. Guys that want to play mind games, this doesn't feel right or whatever, probably can talk themselves into anything. But I think it's a good question. I just, we haven't addressed it because you can't change. You're going to use this ball here or that ball there. So it's the way it is.
Ray, that was your final question. Thank you for your time this morning. Good luck this week. Hello? Hello?
His line disconnected.
Okay, well, let's get to our next coach. We do have Coach Paul Lusk on the line with us. Missouri State opening up the week with the game against Indiana State. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Mike.
Thanks for your patience today. We're running a little long, but good questions going on this morning. Let's talk about your week opening up against the Sycamores. Talk about the game, and then we'll open it up for some questions for you.
Well, they've had a very good non-conference, or a very good conference season. I think it starts with those 4 guys that have been in it: Christian Smith, Gant, Kitchell, and then Devontae Brown. I think Devontae Brown's one of the most improved players in the league. And I think that's a compliment to him and Coach Lansing's staff. The kid's worked at it. He's become a very good player on both sides of the ball.
Thank you, Paul. Let's get now to the questions for Coach Paul Lusk, questions from the media.
Your first question comes from Pat Borsey with the New York Times.
Hi, Paul. I'm writing about Northern Iowa this week.
Yep.
And obviously Tuttle is a terrific player, but they're certainly not a one-man show, and you just played them, of course. What are some of the factors that make them such a challenge to play?
Well, I think obviously it does start with him, though. It's such a compliment to him because he makes everyone better around him. But I think they've got very skilled players. They've got great size. At the 4 spot, they can play the tough guy, Singleton, who just is a winner through and through. He sets screens, he rebounds, he plays his role. Then they can change that up and go with a face-up guy in Buss, who basically has guard skills at times. I like the way they can change it up at the point guard spot. Deion Mitchell is a guy that's been through it. He's playing the best basketball of his career. And then you can change and go with Wes Washburn, who I think is one of the best guards in the league, has great breakdown ability, great vision. They're well oiled. They have great spacing offensively. They cause you problems on the defensive end. Obviously, they hold their opponents to 51 points per game. But it's not just about one guy, but yet that one guy is very, very critical to their success. He's that good.
He can score from a lot of different places. Is that one of the things that it makes him really, really tough to guard?
Yeah, I think the thing that he's done in the past is, like just for example, yesterday, you have to stop their ball screen stuff, their drag ball screen, and kind of let him play out up top there. And he's not been a consistent 3-point shooter, but that's all changed. I mean, he can make threes. He made 2 of them out of the gates on us. Obviously, he has tremendous footwork in the post. He can score it down low. He seals. He runs. He can drive the basketball. But I think his probably best quality to me is just how they can run everything through him. It seems like he calls out their plays. He calls out their defense. But with that offensively, he's such a great passer. And he can put the ball on the deck. He made a couple passes against Indiana State. We had just played him, but where he drove it, and he literally left his feet and threw behind him to a guy for a wide-open 3, and you don't see many guards that can make that play. I think his passing ability is phenomenal.
Thanks, Paul.
You bet.
Again, to ask a question, start in the number 1.
Paul, that was your last question. Thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Good luck this week. Try to get a hold of Coach Barry Hinson. We don't have him yet, but we're going to go ahead in the schedule, and we'll go to Coach Marty Simmons at Evansville. Evansville opening up the week with a game against Drake at home tomorrow. Good morning, Marty.
Good morning, Mike.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let's get right to the questions. We're a little behind schedule. Thanks for your
No problem
today, but let's get right to the questions. For your questions for the coach from the media.
Your first question comes from Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
Morning, Marty. I was wondering if you guys have already obviously been thinking about postseason opportunities. So I want to ask you 2 questions. One is, do you believe Northern and Wichita are in the NCAA tournament no matter what, number 1? And then number 2, what do you think the likelihood of your aces playing in some postseason tournament?
Well, I think the first question, I would certainly think so. They've both been in the top 20, it seems like, the entire season. I may be incorrect on that, but it certainly seems that way. They both got terrific resumes, non-conference. They're well-deserving. As far as us, we've got a lot of work to do. It's just day to day, and, we're just worried about our next opponent, Drake.
When you think about that next opponent and your big guy who's still trying to get all the way healthy against their big sophomore, how do you like that matchup?
Good matchup. I mean, I think both players have really improved, and if I pronounce it wrong, I'm sorry. Inavold is big, and he really takes up a lot of space in there. He's got a good skill set in there where he can score with either hand. He makes good decisions when he's double-teamed as far as getting it to his teammates. And then I certainly feel like our young man, Agidius, has gotten better each year that he's been here and does a lot of really, really good things for our team.
Thanks a lot, Marty.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Paul Solentrop with the Wichita Eagle.
Hey, Marty, you've got Agidius back. You've got Mislav back. Do you feel like you're kind of back to the team that you started with and playing better here recently?
I do. I mean, Agidius was out basically for a week and didn't do anything, and Mislav just, he's not 100%, but he gets more comfortable every day. Anybody that's come back from a broken bone in their hand or wrist or whatever, it just takes a little bit of time to get acclimated. He was obviously very good in the second half at Southern, but we do feel that way. I mean, wish you had a little more practice time, which, just at this time of the year, you're just trying to keep them fresh and keep them healthy with the knick-knack injuries, but it's nice to have everybody back.
And then it looks like Jalen Moore is on a pretty good stretch here. He's playing more minutes. Tell me a little bit about what he's given you here recently.
He's really played athletic here in the last few games. I think stepping in, when Agidius was out, he stepped up. He did what you'd like to see seniors do. He's always been a great teammate. It's nice to see, but he just seems to be playing athletic and playing with a little bit more confidence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was talking and I was on mute. That was the last question for Marty. Let's have Coach Porter Moser of Loyola join us now. The Ramblers coming off 2 wins this week, 3 wins in their last 4, and Northern Iowa next on the docket for the Ramblers. Morning, Coach.
Morning, Mike.
Well, let's talk about Northern Iowa. They are playing at a very high level, of course, and then we'll open it up for some questions for you for preview against the Panthers.
Yeah, that's an understatement about them playing at a high level. They're just watching them yesterday at Missouri State. They just hitting on all cylinders, inside out, defensively, offensively. They're playing really well. Watching Tuttle, I just listening to the things about him. I mean, just an amazing year, an amazing player that he is. So obviously they're very, very good.
Thank you, Porter. Let's get down to the questions for you. Questions for Coach Porter Moses.
Your first question comes from Pat Morrissey with the New York Times.
Yeah, Borsey. Thanks. Hi, Porter. I'm writing about Northern Iowa this week, and you mentioned a couple of things about Tuttle. Have you ever seen somebody other than a point guard call the plays or call the defenses for a team like he does?
No, I haven't. He's got an incredible feel for their offense and the team, and great IQ. I just watching him on tape so much. My former mentor and coach that I coached with, Rick Majerus, who just loved big men. He loved post players. This by far would be his favorite player in the country. I mean, I know him Coach Majerus so well. This would be his favorite player. He changes speeds. He doesn't get sped up. He's a great passer. He can shoot it. He can pass out of the double team. He reposts. I mean, Coach Majerus always taught to repost. I mean, that's an old school thing. You don't see a lot of kids reposting anymore. And gosh, he's just terrific. I mean, he's a coach's dream. I mean, that kind of IQ. You don't see post players with that kind of feel and command of their team.
Yeah, I'm not sure I ever remember a big guy like him that calls the plays or sets the defenses. One other thing I wanted to ask you about with them is Ben's had a lot of good teams at Northern Iowa. Their defense in particular this year seems particularly exceptional. Do you see the same thing, and then what makes their defense so tough?
Well, one, there's a combination of their positioning. They 5 guys are playing hard, playing in great positions. They're rotating. They're talking. They're a noisy defensive team. They're constantly talking. The coaching staff does a great job on scouting. You can tell they're very well scouted. They combine that with just great position defense. But you look at that stat, I think someone just said it. I think they're giving up 14 points less than the previous year. I think if that's right. That's a crazy stat. I mean, to have 14 points less per game given up from the previous year. And that's a huge jump. But they're constantly active. They're in great stance and vision, position defense. And the other thing about Tuttle is sometimes, you're always talking about your post players yelling out screens, talking. Tuttle is a very vocal defensive player. He's talking. As much as he's calling out stuff on offense, he's calling it out on defense. You can just see him pointing, talking, directing. You can tell he's on top of the scout, and he shows great leadership in the defensive end as well.
Porter, that's terrific. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Your next question comes from Harry Schroeder with the Wiley Hoops Insider.
Porter, you guys with kind of picking it up here with some wins here lately, maybe have thrown yourself back into thought of maybe some postseason play. Do you guys talk about that with the players? That's my first question. Second question is this: is there any way that Northern or Wichita does not make it to the NCAA tournament, even if neither of them wins the Valley tournament?
No way they're not in. They're in for sure. I mean, it's not even a question. They're in for sure. So I'll start with that. And they, as far as us, I just heard Marty say the same thing. I caught the tail end of his with your question with him, and you're just so focused on yourself right now. I mean, just trying to, win each game being the thing. You don't want to get too far ahead of it. Players are 100% aware of it. I mean, there's no doubt they're not aware of it. But for us, we just trying to get better, one game at a time, trying to move up. In the conference standings here, there's obviously a jumble in the bottom and middle, and just ourselves that way, and get hot. You want to get hot at the right time, and we feel like, we're playing better without Milt. What I mean by that is that when the first 5 games without him, we were struggled, and we played well, played hard, but now we're starting to get some confidence. And then when we get him back, we just hope we're really peaking at the right time.
When you look at this season, your RPI is 100 and something points better than a year ago. All this time without Milt, is it a gratifying season for you? I mean, you guys have done a lot of good things.
I haven't had time to sit back and think like that. We're just so in the moment. 3 games this week, and you're just so in the moment. I mean, your whole goal is, when you're turning around a program, is to keep your arrow going up, get better every year, and we did that. And we got to take another step. I mean, we obviously got some big steps to take to get to the top of the league, and we feel like our arrow's going up. The culture, the talent level, and we had a good recruiting class. We need to have another one. You got to string 3 or 4 recruiting classes together, and but I just haven't had time to reflect on it. We're just in the moment right now. We still, hope to have a good run here at the end.
And I'm dominating the time. I apologize. One last question. You said when you get Milt back, you hope you can get hot. Do you anticipate him back, maybe even by the tournament?
We do. We anticipated him getting back by then, for sure.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Your next question comes from Jim Benson with the Bloomington Pantograph.
Porter, Harry just asked about Milt Doyle, and you anticipate him back before the season ends. Do you anticipate him back sometime this week, perhaps?
He's getting reevaluated this week. So the doctor told me on this evaluation, if he gets cleared, he's ready to start practicing. So that's all I kind of know, too. So if he gets cleared, it'll be this week. How long it takes him to get back into the flow of things, we don't know yet.
And Porter, about your team, you guys obviously have had some success on the road in conference games this year. What's the big difference between last year and this year as far as your road play?
We're deeper. I mean, we got more guys that can do some things, so that always helps. But it's believing, and I guess we got a couple road wins early, and we beat Kent State on the road, and they're having a real nice year, and Texas San Antonio, and we got a couple road wins that just kind of, and then our conference one, winning at Evansville, that on that last second shot, just obviously the confidence is always something, but we're just deeper. We got a couple. Last year we just grinded out guys 37, 38 minutes, and we don't have anybody around that area. Everyone's playing around 30 below. So I do think we're a little deeper, and then with some.
Thanks, Porter. See you Saturday.
Thanks, Jim.
Your next question comes from Paul Sullentrop with the Wichita Eagle.
Porter, it looks like Ben Richardson is somebody who's stepped up here recently. How's his progress going?
It's really good. I love him. I mean, he's a winning type of kid. He comes from a great high school program. But, he's just a confident kid. And, he's had some big games in the road at Missouri State. He was real big yesterday. He really got us going in that first half with some shots, but his confidence is growing. He's good defensively. Obviously, he's going to get stronger as he gets older, but really like him. Like I answered that question with Jim, he's another guard. We just were so strapped on guards last year. He just gives us another guard. He's actually in the starting rotation right now, but just his development is just coming on strong. Sometimes freshmen hit the ball. Ben seems to be getting better as the season goes, and that's just a great sign for us.
Thank you.
Coach, that was your final question. Thanks for your time this morning.
Mike, take care.
Okay, bye-bye. Gina Porter Bradley with us. The Braves opening up their week against Illinois State in the I-74 rivalry series, and then Northern Iowa this weekend. Good morning, Gina.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. Let's talk about Illinois State, and we'll open it up for some questions for you. Preview your game against the Redbirds for us.
Well, they're really, really talented. I mean, I know that a lot of people have said publicly that they think they've got the most talent in the league. I think they're right up there. I mean, it's a great collection of players that they have, and they got a lot of depth and size and guys that can score. It'd be a big challenge for us. Rivalry game. Hopefully, we play better than we've been playing, and we'll still have a tall task. I mean, they're a team that's in the mix, and we're going to need to play well. So we'll hopefully be ready Wednesday.
Thank you, Gino. Let's go ahead and open it up now for some questions. Questions for Coach Gino Ford.
Press star then the number 1. Again, that's press star then the number 1 to ask your question with the Bloomington Pantograph.
Gino, could you just talk a little about Warren Jones? I see, obviously, he came back yesterday. I think he played next, kind of working more into the minutes-wise this week coming up.
Yeah, he played, I think it was 13, but, Warren is back. Now he's in a mode where he needs to earn minutes, and yesterday he had a couple defensive things in the first half that cost him some playing time, but he's done a nice job. He's I think really grown from the mistake. The tie that'll be proven over time with consistent positive behavior. But he's a good person and a good kid who made a bad decision and dealt with the consequences, and it certainly hurt his season. He hasn't been in a great rhythm. I mean, he played the first handful of games for us, broke his foot, came back, and just about the time, he got about 5 or 6 games under his belt from the broken foot, he kind of self-eliminated there with the off-the-floor deal. So, hopefully he can get it going because we've been offensively challenged on the entire season. And yesterday we didn't play him much in the first half, and we shot 28% and scored 22 points at home against Loyola, and those aren't very impressive numbers. And then in the second half, he played 11 minutes, which still isn't a ton, but we shot 48% as a team, and scored 33 or something in the second half, 31, which is much better. We need him to be a part of what we're doing for us to have any chance to be good. But like all players, he's got to be playing well. When your mind isn't right, your game isn't right, and hopefully he can continue to build on his return, and we can get him playing well here over the next couple weeks.
I know you've lost 5 of your last 6, but most of those losses have been very close losses. I mean, do you feel like the team is making progress, just not getting in the win column at this point?
Yeah, you know what? We're playing so much better than we played in November, December. Now, the record wouldn't indicate that, but if you really follow the results, I mean, we've lost several one-possession games. We've now lost 4 out of 5, and they've been 5-3. And I mean, yesterday was 5, but it was a tie game with 10 seconds to go, and we couldn't get a stop. So, we've been in position to win and just haven't been able to kick the door down other than the one at Evansville. So we just got to stay with these, get in the close games and find a way to make some winning plays late. Because in this league, you start licking your wounds and feeling sorry for yourself, you're going to get embarrassed. I mean, we got 2 really good teams this week. I mean, Illinois State, I think is a team that people thought would compete for a championship, and we know how good they are. And then we go up to Northern Iowa, who's a playing like a top 10, top 5 team in the country. So, I mean, this week's brutal for us, and we can't worry about what the results have been. We got to be very determined to stick with the process of improvement and getting better and playing the right way. And unfortunately, in all these games, we've just had lulls offensively. I mean, we've gone 5, 6, 7 minutes, and we can't score. And we just don't have a lot of places to turn for an easy basket. And some of that's been Warren being out, and some of that's been other guys just not making plays. And we've got to find a way to get some other guys making plays, and we need to get Warren back. But we need an infusion of some offensive production. I mean, ironically, the game at Illinois State, we scored 72. That's by far the most we've scored in any league game this year. I mean, we've consistently been in the 50s, and they beat us by 10, so it wasn't a game to the buzzer or anything like that. But we're not going to win a game with them if they score 82 points over here, because we don't have the firepower to combat that. So it needs to look like a lot different game in terms of pace, and we need to get off to a good start, something we've really labored to do.
You talked about losing a lot of, games in the last possession or so. Illinois State has kind of done that too. Does that just speak to the fact that both teams are relatively Division I experience-wise, pretty?
Yeah, I think both teams are really young. I mean, you can point at a roster and say, oh, they got some juniors or they got this. You got to have guys that have games under their belt. I mean, our guy that we put the ball in his hands when the game's on the line is either Tremeke or Warren, and they're not only in their first season of Division I, but both of them missed about 10 games. Warren's actually missed more than that. So for them, Tremeke Sutherland's played 12 games, I think, or right around there. Warren's played maybe, a little bit less. So there just isn't a lot of experience. I think Illinois State's found the same thing. I mean, Paris Lee's a nice player, on the perimeter, and he's got the ball in his hands, and is a guy who needs to make decisions, and he's going to do nothing but get better throughout his career. And he's a sophomore. And you look at Wichita State, who is able to make those winning plays all the time, and they got Van Fleet with the ball, who's got more minutes than anybody. I think he's in about his 10th year. So, there's just a lot to be said for having, veteran guys with the ball in their hands making decisions in the last minute of the game. And that's things, I'm pretty confident that Tremeke's going to continue to get better. I'm sure that, Dan's confident that Paris is going to continue to get better with that too. And, when you got guys that haven't played a lot, they make once in a while, it's just one play. You make one defensive blunder or you miss one shot. And that's the difference between winning and losing. Our game yesterday, Loyola had a kid go down the lane and made a running floater over top of us with 10 seconds to go. We came down and had a running floater to tie the game, and it didn't go. And, it's the difference between a win and a loss. And they're the same exact play. One, we needed to get a stop and score on the other end, and it went backwards for us. So, I think both teams will keep getting better, and I think where they are, they got to feel like, they're going into the tournament with a chance to make a run. I know they've lost some close games, but I'm telling you, they got a good team. They could put it together at any time.
Thanks, Gino.
Yep, thanks.
Your next question comes from Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
Gino, you were talking about Tremeke, and I wanted to ask you about him. I think he's played 40 minutes the last 2 and 3 of the last 5, but scoring more, scoring's up, rebounding's up, everything is up. Is that just part of him getting those games under his belt, like you were talking about? And so obviously, it looks like anyway, he's playing his best basketball of the year. And does your young team grasp the depth of the rivalry between Illinois State and the Braves?
Well, yeah, I think the first point is a great one. Tremeke is really playing well right now for us. He's been on a little bit of a tear, and I think, all guys, junior college guys in particular, you usually, in your mind, think, hey, he'll get through the non-conference and hopefully he'll be playing well in January. Well, in our situation, we didn't have him until the last week of December, so at that point, February becomes his January, and I think that he has, he's had to make some adjustments. First off, the games are officiated much differently. In junior college, if you drive to the rim, there's hardly any chance that the defense is going to take a charge. There's also, if there's any contact, many of those officials, they call the game a lot tighter around the rim. So if you take the ball to the basket and you get body contact, you're calling a foul. And in our league, they really officiate verticality. So, if you jump straight up, it doesn't matter how much contact there is, it's not a foul. And he's had to adjust to that because he was used to getting calls that now aren't fouls, and they're not fouls. And he's had to trust his mid-range jumper because he used to just be able to outrace everybody to the rim. And so I think there's some very practical reasons as to why he's gotten better. His adjustment to the officiating, his adjustment to needing to shoot more pull-up jumpers. I think those things have helped. And then I think the experience has been a big piece as well. As for our team and the rivalry, the first game, I don't think the first game, necessarily that we totally grasp it, but you walk in and the place is packed, and they had a really good crowd for our game, and they're into it. I think our kids by the first media timeout had it pretty well figured out, and we're looking forward to the game. I'm glad we're playing them because we haven't been playing well, and I know that on paper they'll be picked to beat us, and everybody thinks they're much better than us, and they probably are. But in one game, anybody can beat anybody. So I think it's a nice distraction for us right now. We won't be thinking about losing close several games in the last week. I think we'll more so be focused on the excitement of getting to play a rivalry game and being distracted in a good way. And as for Tremik with the 40 minutes, I meant to say, basically his backup is a timeout. We don't have a backup for him that can not throw the ball away. So we're just going to continue to let him play, and hopefully he avoids foul trouble.
Thanks a lot, Gino. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Gino, that was your final question. Thanks for your time. Good luck this week.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Let's get next to Coach Dan Muller of Illinois State, opening up at Bradley this week and then back at home against Loyola this weekend. Morning, Dan.
Good morning.
Thanks for your patience. We're running a little behind, but thank you.
No problem.
Let's get right to the questions for you. Questions for Coach Dan Muller.
Press star then the number 1 to ask your question. Again, star then the number 1 to ask a question.
It's a long wait for no media questions. Dan, if I could just have you preview your game against Bradley, and then we'll cue one more time, and then we'll let you go.
Sure. We've lost 3 in a row, and Bradley's had a lot of close games. With Jones back, they're a different team. Obviously, first game back, but he'll be much better as he was against us the first game. So, good rivalry game for us, and we got to figure out how to play better.
Stephanie, if we could read cue one more time for media questions.
Again, if you'd like to ask a question, press star then the number 1. We have a question from Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
Dan, I wanted to ask you about Akun Purcell and just the way he's played this year. It seems like there's some nights he's unstoppable, and then other nights, he's just down a little bit. Just talk about his game and what he brings to you guys.
Yeah, Devon, he was leading our team in scoring before he got hurt. He came back and was shooting about 25% from the field the first 3 or 4 games back. Last 5, he's back to where it was when he got hurt. He's around 50%. He's shooting extremely well from 3. He's very good offensively. He's got a rebounding better than he has recently. We count on him to rebound, but he's hard to guard when he's locked in because he can drive it both ways. He's got a great mid-range game. He gets to the foul line a lot, and when he shoots the way he's been shooting, with his size especially, he's really good offensively. So we need his scoring. We need his scoring, but we need his rebounding also.
When I look at your team and nobody's over 30 minutes and you've got, 8 or 9, 10 guys over 11 minutes, do you find it hard to figure out how to get everybody all the opportunities they want?
A little bit. Our injuries have kind of, they're not an excuse, but they've affected our season, obviously.
Sure.
When Purcell and Hawkins missed a month and 5 weeks, the minutes changed, and we probably would have settled into a different rotation if those guys who were 2 of our starters didn't go down. We're getting closer to it. Some guys are playing a little bit more recently. and I think that will continue. But yeah, it's always hard to get 10 or 11 guys minutes unless you're Northern Iowa. You know, they obviously are doing a much better job. But our injuries have really changed as Geno's has changed our team chemistry, our team feel in a lot of different ways, and it's affected minutes. But guys could play more going down stretch here.
But you guys are as healthy as you've been all year right now, right? I mean, you guys could be really set up for a good stretch run.
Yeah, and, you know, people have said that. I've thought that at times. Yeah, we are, as far as health-wise, we are as healthy as we've been because now conditioning is a factor, and Hawkins and Purcell are starting to, you know, they're in mid-season form or close to it at this point, whereas when they first came back, they weren't. We would love to be able to make a run, but we've lost 3 in a row. We're 7-7 in conference, so I don't think we have any more chance than anybody else today. If we figure out how to compete harder and more consistently real soon, then I would agree with you. So we got to get that part figured out.
Thanks a lot, Dan.
Thank you, Aaron.
Coach, that was your only line of questioning. Thanks for your time this morning. Good luck this week.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, we'll see you. We are joined by Coach Greg Marshall of Wichita State. The Shockers have 4 regular season games remaining before the tournament, including an announcement today that they will play Northern Iowa on the main channel of ESPN on February 28th. But first up, Southern Illinois tomorrow night. Morning, Coach.
Good morning, Mike.
Well, let's talk about the Salukis. They always play hard against you, and talk about the game tomorrow night, and we'll open it up for some questions for you.
Yeah, they do. Barry always has his team ready to compete, and it's a tough place to win. He does a great job with his young team, staying in every game, and when they make plays and make shots, they can beat you. So we're going to have to go up there and be prepared for 40 minutes of good basketball. Hopefully that's what we can bring.
Thank you, Coach. Let's get now to the questions from the media. Questions for Coach Greg Marshall.
Your first question is from Pat Borisi with the New York Times.
Pat Borisi. Hi, Greg. How you doing?
I'm fine, Pat. How are you?
Good, good. I'm writing about Northern Iowa this week, and you played them. Tuttle's a terrific player, but certainly they're not a one-man show. What's made them particularly challenging to play this year?
They got a lot of depth, a lot of good players. Ben does a great job. He's a wonderful coach. He's got a lot of experience. He's got 5 seniors and probably 4 or 5 juniors, and they've set themselves up for this year. And basically the same guys with a couple of transfers and freshmen that have been added, but basically the same guys. But they've been through the wars, and they understand how to win. Really good defensively. They can beat you in a lot of ways.
Yeah, in the case of Tuttle, is he a particularly challenging guy to try to guard because he can do so many different things?
Yeah, he's dynamic. I mean, he can score in a lot of ways. He can shoot the 3, which he's doing very, very well. He can put it on the floor. He can make post moves. He can double move you down there. He handles the ball and passes it very well. So yeah, he's a dynamic talent.
I'm not sure I've ever seen a big guy call plays and call defenses like he does. Have you?
No, I can't say that I have.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
Your next question is from Paul Sullentrop with the Wichita Eagle.
Hey, Greg. I know Takeo came in, really locked in on defense. Fred and Ron, did they come in? Did they walk in the door, pretty dedicated to playing defense the right way in college?
I think Baker probably a little more so than Fred. Fred was not as good as a freshman, but he's become a better athlete since he's been here. He cut his body up. He got stronger. He got quicker. So I think the weight work and the conditioning and all the strength work has helped him. Now, he always had the desire, and he always wanted to, but I just think he's a much better athlete now, and stronger and quicker to aid his defensive prowess.
they're such good offensive players. Is it rare that they come in and they're, the level of playing hard on the defensive end is not tied to whether they're making shots or not?
Well, that's what we kind of ask them to do. That's our system. So we try to defend and rebound every night, and when the ball's going in, we can beat anyone. So they bought into that. It's what they signed up for.
Fred Dankel, how's that doing?
Yesterday he was a little gimpy, but he went through a light practice, and he just, he says he's going to play. So we'll see.
All right, thank you.
Your next question is from Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
In 2006, Missouri State was a 21, I think, in the RPI and missed the tournament. Do you think there's any chance at all that either you or Northern don't make the tournament if, something crazy would happen and neither of you win the MVC tournament?
That's not for me to decide. I don't have a vote in that.
Okay, good enough. What about the other teams in the league that might be able to play in some postseason? You have thoughts about how many 2 or 3 other teams could make postseason play somewhere?
2 or 3 teams from what?
From your league, other teams in your league. What do you think? Do you have a thought about whether or not other teams in your league could be playing postseason somewhere?
I mean, there's a lot of postseason. Which one are you talking about?
Well, any of them, the NIT, the BIT, all those other tournaments.
Oh yeah, there'll probably be 3 or 4 playing that.
All right, good enough. Thanks, Greg.
Greg, Carson Tiggs of the Waterloo Courier is trying to get back from the game. He asked me to ask this question for you, for him. That he wanted to talk about the standings and where we've had some separation at the top, and whether it's better to have some blocks in the NCAA tournament with 2 at the top, or to have a more jumbled mess, if you will, in terms of teams all fighting for the title coming into the last couple of games of the season.
I don't know. Have you been talking to Harry? I'm not sure we are locks. We've. Did you hear that last question?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So are you saying we're locks? Harry's saying there's a possibility we don't make it. I don't know.
Well, in terms of the separation of the standings, anyway.
What about it?
If it's better to have a separation at the top, or if it's more conducive to have teams more than just 2 teams fighting for the title.
What's our objective?
Yeah, I was asking for Carson. So I don't know what the objective of the story is.
The objective is to get 2 teams in the tournament. Then probably it's better to have a little separation. If we're trying to get 4 teams in the tournament, probably not. I mean, it's going to be hard to get 4 in with, unless you're really top heavy. I don't know.
Yeah, that'll suffice. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time this morning, and we will see you tomorrow night.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. This does wrap up the weekly coaches call. We ask everybody to please disconnect at this time. The beat writers, please stay on the line. We'll have a roundtable momentarily.